Hey everyone, Jay Whitner here with Space Headlines. We cover what's going on in the space arena, and today we're going to be talking about late January of 2018. Our first story has to do with a launch on an Atlas V by ULA. This was a missile warning satellite that was launched from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. It was part of a constellation that's the space-based infrared system up in geosynchronous orbit. And this satellite was a 10,000-pound satellite by the Air Force that costs slightly over $1 billion. We had some very good news in that Rocket Lab's Electron rocket had a successful mission. This was their second test flight. The first one had issues. The second one seems to have gone fine. The launch took place from New Zealand. The Electron rocket is obviously a new vehicle. If you're not familiar with it, it's about 55 feet tall. It uses a lot of carbon composite materials in the rocket to save on weight. And the engine is 3D printed, which is a newish thing. Virgin Orbit's Launcher 1 got a contract from GomSpace, and the first flight of Launcher 1 is scheduled for 2018, later on this year. And this particular flight that made the news is scheduled for 2019. So congratulations to George Whitesides, Dan Hart, and Will Pomeranz on the continued development of Launcher 1. And we look forward to the first launch. The Google Lunar X Prize made an interesting announcement that basically they're going to let the contest expire. The contest was to send a payload to the lunar surface and move and take some imagery. And they've extended this prize deadline a couple times, but they've decided they're not going to extend it anymore. So the deadline was March, next month, March 2018. And they spoke to all the teams that have been competing, and the teams have acknowledged they can't make that deadline. And the Google Lunar X Prize people have said the contest will not be extended. A little bit more was revealed a few days after the launch of the Electron rocket about some of the special things that they were doing. They used a kick motor to send the satellites into a circular orbit, which was a little bit interesting. And this is the first rocket that uses an electric pump to pump the fuel to the engines, as opposed to some of the other alternatives. So 3D printing, ultra lightweight materials, and some new technologies and some new techniques are part of what's making the Electron work. So congrats to them. There was a big meeting held in Tokyo about the Deep Space Gateway. This is sort of a small-scale space station in orbit around the moon is what we're talking about. Many nations are talking about this possibility, including the United States, Russia, the Europeans, Japan, and Canada. And all the nations seem to like the idea of doing this, but naturally there's a lot of details to be ironed out along the way. But it does seem that there is a consensus building that this is a good idea, and hopefully, if we do this, it will be a stepping stone to the moon and building a base there, as opposed to an alternative to a lunar base. I'm hoping it's a means to an end, but we'll have to see. Falcon Heavy had their engine test. This is kind of exciting when you have a rocket that has 27 engines in the first stage. So they turned on the 27 Merlin engines. The engine firing lasted for about 10 seconds. Naturally, the rocket didn't go anywhere. This was just a test of the engine system. Mr. Musk said the test was good and that he was pleased with the results of that test, and that they would probably be launching the Falcon Heavy in a week or two. So good news for SpaceX and the Falcon Heavy. The Electron rocket that I mentioned earlier in today's broadcast had an interesting payload aboard called Humanity Star. You see an image of the Humanity Star here. There's not really much to give it scale here. I would say this thing is 4 or 5 feet in diameter, and if you look at it, there's all these flat reflective surfaces. So the idea is this will be orbiting the Earth for a limited time, and it will be a very bright object due to the construction and the reflectivity of it. So there's these 65 mirror panels that when they catch the light just right, will be very bright here on Earth. And the satellite is expected to re-enter in about 9 months. The White House made a very interesting announcement regarding the International Space Station. They basically said that they want to end funding for ISS by 2025. And this was very interesting news, naturally, to a lot of the players in the space community. And the opinions are kind of mixed about this announcement. We've known that the International Space Station had a limited lifespan anyway, and people have been talking about how long it might last. Is 2028 a good year, and so forth. But by doing this, it appears we'd open up a funding wedge that might permit a lunar return without increasing the NASA budget. So while there's a lot of mixed opinions about this, my personal take is that we could see a commercial space station launched on or about 2025 that could be operated for a lot less money. And with the savings, we could go ahead and go after the moon. So in that context, I think it could be a good thing, but it definitely bears close watching because we certainly need a base to work from in low Earth orbit. SpaceX has announced the timing for the Falcon Heavy launch. They are saying the launch is going to happen on Tuesday, February the 6th. This will be the maiden voyage, the first flight of the Falcon Heavy. It's supposed to launch between 1:30 and 4:30 Eastern Time on Tuesday. It's going to be the most powerful rocket that's flown since the last Saturn V launched back in 1973. To put it in a more modern context, it's over twice the payload capacity of the biggest rocket currently flying, the Delta IV Heavy. And in a very interesting note, the cost per pound of launching stuff on the Falcon Heavy, based on information released by SpaceX, would appear to be roughly $650 a pound, which is well below the $1,000 a pound that people have been talking about for so long, and about 1/10 of the cost per pound of flying things on the Delta IV Heavy. So definitely a red letter day. Be sure to be paying attention on Tuesday, February the 6th for a big show, whatever happens. That's it for our show covering January, late January of 2018. Hope you enjoyed it. Keep us in mind in the future. We're considering going to a weekly format, so you may see more timely shows covering 1 week at a time instead of 2 weeks at a time. So thanks for being with us, and have a great day.